There are things that are within our power and things that fall outside our power. Within our power are our opinions, aims, desires, dislikes, in a sum, our own thoughts and actions. Outside our power are our physical characteristics, the class into which we're born, our reputation in the eyes of others, and honors and offices that may be bestowed on us. Working within our sphere of control, we are naturally free, independent, and strong. Beyond that sphere, we are weak, limited, and dependent. If you pin your hopes on things outside your control, taking upon yourself things which rightfully belong to others, you are liable to stumble, fall, suffer, and blame both gods and men. But if you focus your attention only on what is truly your own concern, and leave to others what concerns them, then you will be in charge of your interior life. No one will be able to harm or hinder you. You will blame no one and have no enemies. If you wish to have peace and contentment, release your attachment to all things outside your control. This is the path of freedom and happiness. If you want not just peace and contentment, but power and wealth too, you may forfeit the former in seeking the latter, and you will lose your freedom and happiness along the way. Welcome to Orion Philosophy, where we explore, discuss, and dissect areas of practical philosophy for use in everyday life. All of us are flawed. We all have our own little imperfections, limiting beliefs, biases, incorrect assumptions, rough edges, and quirks, all of which make us individuals and make us who we are. We are far from perfect, and we're far from a finished product. And that's okay, it's just part of being a human being. As most people develop over time, these rough edges get smoothed as we go through the world. Our perceptions get rounded by experience, and our ideas and beliefs are shaped by coming into contact with the realities of life. We all want these changes to be constructive, for us to become better people as we move forward through time. But this is not always the case, and today we'll use Stoic philosophy to find 5 principles we can use to make sure our development and our change is for the better. For the most part, this development is all done unconsciously. We're shaped by what happens to go on around us. We become products of our environment, and as a result become products of random chance. And while random chance can result in a good outcome, it can just as easily result in something negative or destructive. Because random chance is by definition random, this is not really a resilient way to develop. A far better method of change is to make it conscious and deliberate, reminding ourselves of the people we want to be, of the goals we set, and the steps we need to take to get there. Stoicism is a school of ancient Greek philosophy that asks the question, how can we live a good life? More specifically, how can an individual like you and me achieve a state of being in which we flourish, which the Stoics called eudaimonia. Stoic philosophy is one of the few ancient schools of philosophy that people still use to this day, standing the test of time that's eroded most other schools of thought from the same period. Its practicality and simplicity provides a perfect framework on which to build a resilient and constructive personal philosophy. And today we're going to use Stoicism as a guide to build that conscious path forward we spoke about earlier. Rule 1. Accept what you can't control. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about the things which are beyond the power of our will. Epictetus. One of the most fundamental principles of Stoic philosophy is the ability to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot. Epictetus also said, "The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself, which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself, to the choices that are my own." If we get this right, we remove the ability for the areas of life outside our control to impact our peace of mind, and we're free to focus our efforts on the areas of life we can control. This essentially makes us far more resilient and more effective as individuals. If we get this wrong, we allow anything in the world around us to influence our well-being. Our peace of mind becomes a plaything of chance through our inability to decide what we can do something about and accept what we can't. Instead, we're pulled in all directions by anything around us that captures our attention and our emotional energy. During his lectures, Epictetus also said the following: "There are things that are within our power and things that fall outside our power. Within our power are our opinions, aims, desires, dislikes, in a sum, our own thoughts and actions. Outside our power are our physical characteristics, the class into which we're born, our reputation in the eyes of others, and honors and offices that may be bestowed on us. Working within our sphere of control, we are naturally free, independent, and strong. Beyond that sphere, we are weak, limited, and dependent. If you pin your hopes on things outside your control, taking upon yourself things which rightfully belong to others, you are liable to stumble, fall, suffer, and blame both gods and men. But if you focus your attention only on what is truly your own concern, and leave to others what concerns them, then you will be in charge of your interior life. No one will be able to harm or hinder you. You will blame no one and have no enemies. If you wish to have peace and contentment, release your attachment to all things outside your control. This is the path of freedom and happiness. If you want not just peace and contentment, but power and wealth too, you may forfeit the former in seeking the latter, and you will lose your freedom and happiness along the way. One area of life that causes a lot of people a lot of suffering is the inability to accept the unraveling of events around them, despite these events being completely outside the individual's control. This could be anything from traffic, the economy, the weather, or the actions and behaviors of other people. Regardless of what fate has put in front of us, if it's already happened, no amount of worry, anger, jealousy, or frustration will rewind time and undo what's already been done. Nor will it change anything that has yet to come if those events are outside the reach of your control. Which, as we've learned from Epictetus, is basically everything. To illustrate this and help them learn to accept fate, the Stoics used a concept called amor fati, which roughly translates to the love of fate. Nietzsche once wrote, "My formula for human greatness is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not in the future, not in the past, not for all eternity. Not only to endure what is necessary, still less to conceal it. All idealism is falseness in the face of necessity, but to love it." This is the idea that instead of resisting fate, fighting it tooth and nail, and thereby causing ourselves to suffer, we should learn to accept it, and even learn to love it. After all, everything that has come before you was needed for you to be here right now. Without the unfolding of the things before you, gas clouds wouldn't have come together to form planets and stars. Stars wouldn't have bound light elements into heavier elements, and life itself wouldn't have begun from the most basic building blocks of life. We wouldn't have wildlife, mountains, oceans, history, or culture. We wouldn't have the ability to laugh, to feel love, to fear, to feel joy, peace, awe, wonder, and create. While it might be true that there is real suffering in the world, it is exactly this suffering that's needed to make the good feel good. We need hard work to make rest feel restful. We need loss and transience to appreciate what we have, and we need dark to appreciate the light. And while it's easy to focus on the areas of life that cast a shadow over our well-being, the shadows are part of life. And if we want a world in which people are conscious and aware, we need to accept that these shadows are part of the whole, and even learn to love them for growth, and for the contrast and the opportunities they bring. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens, happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy." Rule 3. Accept death. Death and the fear of death can be a debilitating block on our ability to develop a durable and consistent mindset. It can even go so far as preventing people from trying new things, leaving the house, and to live in constant fear of the end. In some cases, under the fear of death, we can be robbed of life. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This fear and uneasiness can come in many forms. We can fear for our own lives, and the thought that one day our existence will end and we may just be snuffed out. Or our fear may come in the form of fear for others, the people around us that we love, and we may limit their experience as we try and shelter them from harm. Either way, death can be a burden depending on how we look at it. But it can also be a catalyst for good. The Stoics employed a principle called memento mori, or the practice of reminding self that one day you will die. However, this was not a morbid, fear-mongering exercise. It was designed to add beauty, gratitude, and fulfillment to life. Through the reminder of death, we can learn to appreciate life, knowing that there will only be a finite number of times we can see our friends, be with our family, enjoy a meal, see a sunset, walk through fields, enjoy the ocean, read our favorite book, eat popcorn in front of a movie, or embrace our partner can create an intense feeling of gratitude in the moment. It can help us stop taking things for granted. We stop focusing on the little arguments and the minor annoyances, and instead become more deliberate with our attention because we're now aware it's a limited resource. The awareness of death can add vibrance to life, and something which is normally pushed out of mind because of the discomfort it caused can be one of the most useful tools to help us find gratitude and help us focus on what's important. Rule 4. Accept that your happiness is your responsibility. ELEANOR Roosevelt once said, "In the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die, and the choices we make are ultimately our own responsibility." There is one thing people do that blocks all routes to growth, and that thing is blame. If we blame other people for our conditions, if we blame other people for our actions, if we blame other people for our mood, we're essentially rejecting any and all responsibility. Rejecting any ownership over the things we've said, thought, and done that have put us in the situation we're in is one of the worst things we can do for personal growth. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "If you want something good, get it from yourself." While blame is a nice quick way to make ourselves feel better in the moment and put all of the fault on something or someone else, it not only stunts us long term, it's often a lie. If we reflect on our life, there are always things we could have done, decisions we could have made, beliefs we could have changed, relationships we could have managed better, and actions we could have taken to get us from A to B and then from B to C rather than doing nothing. These things are always our responsibility. If we have a look back on the conversation we had about control and the things in life Epictetus explained that are within our control, everything there is our responsibility. And as a reminder, he said, within our power are our own opinions, aims, desires, dislikes, in a sum, our own thoughts and actions. Can we blame other people for what's in that list? Sure, but it's not constructive, and it's not true. It will just be one little fix to give you one more moment of feeling like it's not your fault. In the long run, this inability to accept responsibility generally means an inability to accept that you need to do something different. So as the years go by, instead of growing as a person, you'll end up stagnating, and the same problems will likely hit you year after year. Our well-being is our responsibility. Rule number 5. Accept that life is change. Emperor of Rome and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote a few words on change which, to me, are some of the best words on the subject. He wrote the following: "Frightened of change, but what can exist without it? What's closer to nature's heart? Can you take a hot bath and leave the firewood as it is? Eat food without transforming it? Can any vital process take place without something being changed? Can't you see? It's the same with you, and just as vital to nature." A lot of us resist change, and understandably so. We like comfort, we like predictability, and we like to know the order of things, and have the world around us fit nicely into the mental framework we've made for it. Change is often the unknown. It's the unfamiliar, and it risks destabilizing all of the things that make us feel safe and comfortable. But change is inevitable, and if we don't learn to be flexible in the face of change, we risk breaking under the force of it. The more we resist, the more we suffer as it happens around us. The nature of the universe is change. We wouldn't be here without it, and we wouldn't be able to experience any of the wonders of the world around us without it. On change and death, Marcus Aurelius also wrote the following: "Accept death in a cheerful spirit, as nothing but the dissolution of elements from which each living thing is composed. If it doesn't hurt the individual elements to change continually into one another, why are people afraid of them changing and separating? It's a natural thing, and nothing natural is evil. Change is not evil, and it's not bad, it's simply neutral. The goodness and badness is projected onto it by the individual based on how they perceive it and how it affects them. As we move through life, some changes will be uncomfortable, it will be challenging, and it will be hard. But it is precisely this hardship that makes change a catalyst for growth." Epictetus once said, "What would have become of Hercules, do you think, if there had been no lion, hydra, stag, or boar, and no savage criminals to rid the world of? What would he have done in the absence of such challenges? Obviously, he would have just rolled over in bed and gone back to sleep. So by snoring his life away in luxury and comfort, he would never have developed into the mighty Hercules. So whenever you find yourself in the middle of life's challenges, accept them as they are. Accept that you can only control what you do and think and say, and try to look to see what can be gained from the adversity, what lessons it can hold for you, and what growth it can spark.